It's not like I'm Megan and am not more disciplined than you are. Instead of good and bad, it's like there's eat more, there's eat some, and there's eat less foods.
The way that you're describing that you work with people is that you're very considerate of them as a person.
Nutrition is the hardest. Like I always say, 99% of the battle. You don't rise to the level of your goals, but you fall to the level of your systems.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Thrive Local. Today, I have Megan Hardy, who is the founder and CEO of Fitness Uncharted, which is a one-on-one fitness and nutrition coaching company. And she's also the host, another fellow podcaster of the Muscle Makeover podcast, which I did preface. This is constantly playing in the background in my kitchen because my wife is a huge fan of Megan's and she's always listening to her content. So just want to give a shout out there as part of this introduction. But back to the intro. With over a decade of experience as a nutrition and body transformation coach, Megan's journey is rooted in personal experience, having overcome years of binging, restricting food, and undergoing her own body transformation. Now she's dedicated to helping other women achieve their dream bodies, and more importantly, the confidence and food freedom that comes with it. Megan combines her background in dance, anatomy, and somatic studies from James Madison University with a deep passion for guiding women to become the healthiest, strongest versions of themselves inside and out. Her approach, she wants to help others get there in half the time it took her. We're excited to have her here as part of the journey and the insights that she's gained along the way. With that said, Megan, welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Thank you for that intro. I'm glad to be here. And I'm sorry if you're tired of my voice from Becky playing my podcast all the time.
Well, actually, it's funny because I'm a subscriber, on your, and I know you primarily talk, your target audience is women, and that's the people that you're really focusing on. But, I went through, and I still am going through like a transformation in my own health journey. So, there was some insights I was really interested about, like thinking about macros and the nutrition side, which is like, I've learned is, you can't out train a bad diet. And
sure.
Yeah, so you've got a lot of good insight there.
Well, and I will say we do work with men too, but I'm always speaking to the ladies, but it all applies to the guys too. So I'm glad you got something out of it. Yeah.
Well, one of the things I really want to start off with is kind of touching on like the journey that got you to what you're doing today, because it's interesting. I know you through my wife, who is a dental hygienist, and I know you worked in dentistry. And now you're in fitness coaching. So tell me a little bit more about like your background and kind of what led you to what you're doing now.
Yeah. So I'm going to try not to get too wordy with it, because it goes back to like really high school, I would say. So for me, I feel like every fitness coach especially has their own journey themselves. And that's why they got into the space of wanting to be a coach, because something transformed their life. I know that was true for me. And so like back in high school, I started developing more of like not like as far as super like classified eating disorder, but I did really struggle with binging and restricting my food. And it probably got to its worst in college and then post grad. And I would just binge really hard at night. And then the next day I would restrict and I would do excessive cardio, trying to make up for the binges. And we're talking like binges. We're talking like I used to live in a dorm while I was in college. I'd go to the vending machine and get like 2 massive honey buns the size of my face, 3 bags of Pop-Tarts, 3 bags of chips, and then my Diet Coke, because, I had to save on the Diet Coke. I actually love diet soda better than regular soda. But anyway, I would just really have these hard binges and then feel like crap about myself physically and mentally. And the next day I would restrict, over exercise. I was dancing and in rehearsals. I was going to the gym and doing cardio for 2 hours every day while walking around campus as well. And so I was able to kind of maintain, but I was like super miserable, and still didn't even like how I felt and looked, my body composition. But I was just manually trying to maintain what I had and compensate for the binges. So with that being said, I started post grad. I actually met my now husband. I don't like to give him too much credit, but really got more interested in like doing heavier strength training. And instead of, I was the cardio bunny, and I started doing more strength training, and I started just fueling my body more consistently throughout the day. So I started fueling more, intentionally eating more, and then also more protein, things like that. And my body composition started to change for the better. And then also my relationship with food was improving and changing. I wasn't feeling like there was good food versus bad food, or things should be off limits, or I was bad if I ate the sugar or whatever. I
Mm.
found that balance in that process. And it was an amazing thing. I actually gained 30 pounds, but I'm tighter and leaner and more toned now than I was prior. And I have a better relationship with food. I'm not hung up on the scale. And so, like, I experienced this, and it was a process over really like a slower process over a decade. But I experienced that, and I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I had a coach who could have shown me this sooner. Like, I wish I had
Mm.
known this stuff sooner. And so that's the coach I want to be for other women, is like, I want them to not only experience like the confidence that comes with feeling good and loving like how you feel in your skin, but I want them to have the food freedom piece. Cause there's a lot of fit people out there, you know, who you look at and you go, dang, they work out, but they have a terrible relationship with food, or they're not really healthy on the inside. They're doing
Yeah.
things like, maybe if it fits your macros and they're eating, you know, the right macronutrients, but those macros don't have the right micronutrients. They're not healthy on the inside. So, or they just have a really poor relationship with food or body dysmorphia. So it's like, I want you to experience not just the physical transformation, but like the full, all encompassing, like mental, emotional, spiritual health, like how all of that comes together. And that's what got me into the space.
That's cool that you intertwine like spiritual, mental, physical, like it's all really pulls together. And and I had mentioned to you like I had started my own transformation last November. I actually had stopped drinking alcohol. It was like the first step.
Mhm.
And haven't drank since. So it's been, and then there's been other things, but it really does intertwine so many elements of just like your spirituality and your mental health, and it all comes together. I'm really curious because you
Yes.
mentioned that there was like a 10-year span here that you were going through this process. Um, Looking through that, and you didn't have a coach, right, during this whole
Mhm.
time. It was just you by yourself. Okay. So
Yeah.
my question is, knowing that who you are today as a fitness coach, if you were there with yourself going through this transformation, what would be some of the things that you would have coached on yourself as you were going through that process that could have helped maybe shorten the time period or made things more streamlined and more effective?
Yeah, yeah, totally. Well, first and foremost is not looking at things as black or white, getting rid of the all or nothing, good or bad
Mm.
mentality. I think that's a really slippery slope. And I think a lot of people go that route or do that because they almost feel like it's easier to just say like, okay, that's off limits because like I obviously what I'm doing is not working, so I'm just going to cut out all carbs, or I'm just going to cut out all sugar, or like, and then but then when they have those things, they're like they feel guilt and they feel bad because they're like, oh, dang it, I told myself I wasn't going to have any chocolate, like I
Mm.
had the piece of chocolate. And so it goes into that yo-yo of binge restrict or good versus bad instead of like the sustainability piece. And so, one thing that we actually incorporate with some of our clients, for the large majority, we incorporate macros or macronutrients. So, I know you said you got into that a little bit.
Hmm.
And, you know, it teaches you how to eat for your body the right way. It teaches you about your food. It's like, it's just a skill. And it kind of just boils down to basic math in a way of like, what does my body need and what's also in my food. So that's something for me. I wish I had had sooner an understanding of that, because a lot of people, even some people who have tracked macros in the past before they come to work with us, they may have come from past eating disorders, and they're like, man, I'm nervous to track because it's kind of triggering because I'm always trying to restrict when I'm tracking. And I'm
Yeah.
like, we don't have to track if it's triggering. First of all, if you do have an eating disorder, you know, you probably want to be working with a professional there and then come work with us, you know, if you're on the kind of the other side of that. But we don't want to trigger something again. But if you're open to it, we're going to do it a different way. And we're going to track to where we're looking at it as how much can I eat? How much can I fuel my body with? And how can I just learn about my food? And what I found for a lot of my clients is it actually gives them more food freedom because they realize, oh, I actually can incorporate the ice cream. And if I plan for it and it fits in my macros, I don't have to feel bad about it. That's cool. And I'm not going to have to worry about blowing up like a balloon. So they're learning how to eat the fun foods, incorporate those things, and it's taking away the shame and the guilt that comes with quote unquote bad food. So like what we try to do is look at food instead of good and bad. It's like There's eat more, there's eat some, and there's eat less foods. So there's foods we want to eat more of, like our lean proteins, our healthy fats, our complex carbs, foods we want to eat some of, like, okay,
Hmm.
maybe, whatever you want to fill in that column, eat less, more of our processed foods, like our trans fats, added sugars, hydrogenated oils, things like that. Right. But it doesn't
Yep.
mean you're bad if you have those foods, just eat less of those. So that's something like very applicable that we use with our clients. And then what we do in the last phase of our program is we then wean them back off of tracking into intuitive eating.
Mm.
So the thing I find is oftentimes people will be like, well, I'm eating intuitively. I'm listening to my body, but their body's not giving them the right cues, or they've never been taught how to eat the right way. And that was me. I was trying like, okay, just like eat when you're hungry or don't eat when you're not. But I didn't understand food. And I also, sometimes eating intuitively for people might mean they're hitting up Burger King every day because they're like, well, I'm hungry and that's intuitive. Like, let me just grab Burger King. Right. Or
Right.
I mean, I intuitively could eat this whole pizza. So, like, I guess I'll eat the pizza until I'm full. Or the opposite is true too. A lot of the women we work with are actually under eating from years of chronic dieting. So, their hunger hormones are all out of whack. Most of their hormones are, a
Mm.
lot of their hormones. And their leptin, which is their fullness hormone, is out of whack. Their ghrelin, which is their hunger hormone, is out of whack. And so they actually don't get the hunger cues that they should. And what happens is they're like, I'm listening to my body, but then they go to track their food and they realize they're only eating 1,000 calories a day. And they're like, whoa, how am I not hungry? And I'm like, because your metabolism has down regulated and we got to get that healthy again. So we got to retrain you how to eat for your body. And then you earn the right to eat intuitively. And that's where the food freedom comes in. So that was long winded, but
Yeah, no, that's great. And I've got a couple questions to kind of follow up on that. And the first one is about mindset, because I think that, and I'm just reflecting on my own, behaviors. And I know that like you talked about shame and guilt with food. And it's like I eat that, like I'm thinking that I shouldn't eat that, but I eat it anyway. Now I feel guilty and like I've screwed up, and shame on you for eating that piece of greasy pizza. And I'm curious to know, especially with you working with other people, how the mindset piece plays in there, because I can see that being something that would create reactivity and also low confidence, where if you do have that kind of relationship with food, that people are going to be more likely to kind of rebel against what's best for them,
yeah.
in their health journey because of that shame and guilt.
Yes. Yes. And that's where one, being honest with yourself is super important, but then also being honest with your coach if you are working with a coach,
Yeah.
because there is that shame or guilt element. I've had one or two clients where we might have been months into their program working together. And then it comes out that they've had binges this whole time. And
Mm.
we're kind of wondering, like, why is she not dropping more weight or what's going on here?
Yeah.
And then it comes to find out that that's what's happening. I'm like, oh, but then in my mind, I'm like, actually, that's helpful because if anything, I thought your metabolism was still jacked up. If now we just know you're actually over consuming from your binges. So
Yeah.
it's like, help us help you. But it's a mindset thing of getting over the guilt part, and just being transparent with yourself. But then back to the mental, emotional, spiritual piece, I find that it's not just a matter of like, oh, I just don't have enough discipline. I think that's a thing a lot of people think. They're like, I just need more discipline. I just need more discipline. I'm
Mm.
just not disciplined
Mm.
enough. And what you would realize, or come to realize, what we try to show our clients is it's not like I'm Megan, am not more disciplined than you are. I
Yeah.
just have better systems in place. So I know myself. I know if I have a bag of chocolate chips in the house, I'll eat the whole bag of chocolate chips.
Yeah.
Like I just know that about myself. So I don't keep chocolate chips in the house. Not because I don't eat them because I have good disciplines. I know how to structure my day and my life to make better choices. And so it's really, and this actually goes straight to Atomic Habits, by James Clear.
Mm.
Have you read that
Yep.
book?
I haven't read
Okay.
it. I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
It's great. It's like
Yeah.
one of my favorite books. I used to send that out to clients as gifts because it's just so good. But that book, he talks about just structuring your day. And he says, you don't rise to the level of your goals, but you fall to the level of your systems.
Mm. Hmm.
So we all have really aspirational goals, but we fall to the level of the systems that we have in place. And then John Maxwell, quote from him as well, one of the best in the leadership space. He's like, the dream is free, but the journey isn't. So
Yeah.
like we all have aspirations of having a fit, healthy body or business or whatever, but it's the journey of like, how can we structure the journey in our day for success for ourselves.
Yeah.
So a part of that, that comes with that too on the mindset thing, like you asked, is it's you've got to create the structure and the systems and recognize you're not flawed. It's you need to have better, you need to build better habits and build your day so that you can create better habits, and also removing the bad habits, which is the hardest part too, replacing the bad
Yeah.
ones.
I'll throw one more quote in. From a
Yeah.
mentor of mine that kind of falls in this is the process is a shortcut. So it's like people are always
Yes.
looking for shortcuts. It's like
Oh
just
my
be
God.
be so
Yes.
present with the process, and that's personally helped me because
Before you know it,
you know
you'll wake up a
we
year
talk about
later
shame
going,
and
"Holy
guilt, which
crap, I've got a six
oftentimes
pack
leads
and I'm
is
fit and
related
I've
to
got all
past
these
decisions
amazing
that you
things,"
make.
and it just seems like
But
it
then you've
just
got the
happened
future, which is
overnight
where like
because you were one
anxiety
with
and
the
fear can
process. So
live. And if you just stay present, that's where it's like, this is the process. I wake up, I feed my body the way it needs to be fed. I exercise, I do the work, and I'm one with the process. And before you know it, you'll wake up a year later going, "Holy crap, I've got a six pack and I'm fit and I've got all these amazing things." And it just seems like it just happened overnight because you were one with the process. So
But the
anyway,
process
just
is the
sliding
quick
that in
fix.
there as a little. Go ahead.
I'm so glad you say that. And what's so funny too, Jake, is I feel like everything, like there's so many fitness analogies that translate to business and
Yeah.
business to fitness. Like we use like business or financial analogies all the time, but and that's one thing with the process. Like people want the quick fix as far as a diet or program, right? Because like they want quick results. But the process is the quick fix, because all the
Mhm.
times you have to start over doing the quick fix things, it actually takes you longer
Yeah.
than just doing the process is the quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so cool.
It's so
I
good.
I want to talk about habits because I know that's always been a challenge. I mean, in everything. Like, I mean, we're
Yeah.
just creatures of habit, and our brains are like wired to create these shortcuts so we can be more efficient in how we go through our days. What are some of the habits that you have found to be, I guess, maybe the most challenging to get people to break, and like
Mm.
what's been your secret sauce for helping people get past that?
Yeah. Trying to think of some of like the most difficult habits to break. It's usually like as far as the fitness space is like something around
Or it could be
nutrition
most
related.
common, or it could be
Yeah.
most common. Like, what are just some that you see that like just show up maybe often for people? That's like, oh, here it is again.
Yeah.
This is what we need to do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, honestly, it's like the certain relationships with food is a big one.
Mm,
Because that's where again, like going back to it's not just a discipline thing. There's usually something deeper rooted. And so I see that often where it's nutrition is the hardest. Like I always say it's 99% of the battle. Like
yeah,
workout is like on the side. But like
totally.
nutrition is a really hard thing. And like because we it's just such a big part of our lives. Just like if you're a drug addict or an alcoholic, you can cut out drugs or alcohol, but we can't cut out food. And food
Mm,
addiction is a super real thing. I know
yeah,
for myself, like I used it for a long time to cope with my emotions. Like it was one thing I felt like I could control, or it could bring me happiness, even if temporarily. And so I would emotionally eat, whether I was anxious or bored or sad or mad or whatever. And but I can't just go cut out food to get rid of my
yeah,
addiction to food. Like I have
yeah,
to eat. So that's the biggest one, is the nutrition piece. And then it just really the rest really depends on the person. I will say alcohol is another big habit thing. I think especially
yeah.
post COVID.
Mm,
It's funny, everyone talks, I feel like pre or post COVID. Like people refer to things in life as like, oh, it was pre-COVID or post-COVID.
yeah.
But especially just kind of became more of a norm to like drink every day.
Mm,
It was just kind of like a thing. So that's another big like habit thing I see, is like just doing that more so in moderation. Like I think it's awesome. You said you haven't since November,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Almost a year. Yeah,
Which is awesome. And you can still use those things. So even with those, it's helping clients find the moderation factor. And then also one thing we talk with clients about when they get started is, what are your non-negotiables?
mm,
Like what is a non-negotiable? If I have a client who tells me, after the program, I plan on drinking every day again, I don't care if you then don't cut alcohol during the program. Like, because
yeah,
the results you get during the program, you'll lose when you go back to what you were doing before. So let's just find what you can commit to and what you want to do. Don't So is that compromise for the Wednesday sake wine of a night? Is program or that a Friday coach? date night? Figure out Like, what you can what are your realistically do long non-negotiables, and term. let's work those into your plan, because we want you to be successful when you're done with the program too. So it's really figuring out with them what habits are moving you towards the direction you want to go in, what habits are not moving you in that direction, and where are you willing to compromise some? Because don't compromise for the sake of a program or a coach. Figure out what you can realistically do long term. That's one thing I always say is, if you can't do it long term, why do it at all? Because you're going to lose the result that you got.
There's, people will, and I've seen this show up often in coaching, and I'm really curious to hear your opinion on this because it sounds like you have a more of an unconventional approach to this. And maybe not, maybe I'm wrong. I want to bring it up though. So you have you have this person that comes to you and they need help with their health, right? And there's often this strategy, or I guess approach to getting that transformation of kind of like, letting like who you are and how you live your life kind of die and just be in the past, and we're going to create this new person of who you are, and this is going to be the new Jake or the new Megan or the new whoever, right? And I think I think you can arguably say that there is some truth to that, right? But what
Mm-hmm.
I'm hearing, the way that you're describing that you work with people, is that you're very considerate of them as a person. They're,
Mm-hmm.
the things that do make them happy. It's like Wednesday wine night. Like, I'm not here to take that away from you.
Yeah.
I'm here to like really build around the person that you are. And I'm just curious to hear your thoughts around I'm trying to think of how to put it in words, I guess. It's like the transformation and how, do you believe that people should, how much should somebody really let go of who they are, when they're going through a
Mm.
process like this? Maybe it's the way I want to
Ooh,
ask the question, right?
that is such a good question. And I actually got goosebumps while you're talking about that, because I just that it really hits home. Like the identity
Yeah.
piece of it is huge. And I think that is why a lot of people fail quote unquote diets, is
Mm-hmm.
because they do feel like it's taking away or restricting or just taking away a part of them. Or like when I hear someone say like, oh, whatever, screw it, I just want to enjoy my life or have fun.
Yep.
Like when they've tried diets in the past, first of all, I want to say, and I do ask sometimes, like, are you really enjoying life though if you don't feel good
Mm-hmm.
and you're not confident? Like, you might think you're enjoying life, but like you could really enjoy life and you could actually do both. You could do that thing and feel really good. So there's that element, but no one really makes like for real long lasting change by feeling like they can't do something, or people are resistant to change if they feel like their identity is being changed. So like we want to stay true to who we believe we are. And so if someone comes in trying to change that, we're very resistant to that
Yeah.
change. So that's why I always want to start with clients of like, you get to decide what your non-negotiables are. Well, I'll give you my honest opinion. I mean, we work with clients who are doing the Ozempic or semaglutide shots.
Mm.
I personally am not a fan of them. I don't promote that, and I don't think that's the best route or option. I'm not here to tell you you can't do them. And I work with clients who have used them. And I'm just here to help give you all the information I can and be the support and help you make it a lifestyle, help you maintain your muscle mass, because a lot of people lose their muscle while they're doing the shots because it's
Yeah.
super low calorie, low appetite, things like that. But I'm just here to support you
Yeah.
and do that. And then also with the identity piece, on the flip side, you do have to make some sacrifices and some changes. If nothing changes, nothing changes, right?
Right. Yeah.
So that's where you do need to start to revamping and remaking your identity and stepping into the person you do want to become. Like, who is Megan, the healthy, fit version of Megan? Not lying to myself to say, oh, I am healthy, I am fit with my mantras and stuff when you don't
Mm.
really believe that. But
Yeah.
knowing, like, okay, what would fit healthy Megan a year from now be doing? What do I want her to be doing consistently? Let me start doing those things. And that's where, even with my own journey, it was like over those 10 years, it just became my identity of those things. And that's with clients by the end of the program. Like, one of my favorite things that some clients have said is like, they're like, I just look in the mirror and I'm like, I'm happy with who I see looking back at me. And it's that identity, their identity has shifted, but not because it was forced upon them, but they've stepped into that person they want to be. So there's kind of an element of both. Like,
Yeah.
don't lose yourself. You get to choose what your life looks like, but you will have to make changes. Just like the saying, like, you are the sum of the five people you keep around, right?
Right.
The five closest people. So like, you might need to get, not that you have to disown your friends, but you might need to have more friends, or like be in a space with coaching, or be in a space with other people who care about their fitness, things like that. you might have to start to change little pieces of that to really make it your new identity too. So kind of
Yeah,
both.
that's a great answer. I do love the fact that you talked on about they get the choice because it all comes
Yeah.
down to the choices that you make and stepping into what that, you know, when it comes to any kind of growth, it's like, well, this is a person I've not yet become. And I know, and I think about this in business all the time. It's like, well, there's a certain level in business that you want to get to, but
Mm.
I have to become that person before I'm ready for that level. And I know that's going to take some sacrifice. And I know that there's going to be some things that I need to maybe change in how I show up for the day. You know, maybe I probably need to incorporate health and fitness into my life. That was a thing that, you know, just one of the examples. It's like when you're not fit and you're not healthy, your brain doesn't work as well. And that
Yeah.
stuff needs to be firing for you to be able to become that person.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's great.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's where, like, even on the business side of things, like, even I'm like, okay, I feel like I got this fitness thing nailed down for myself personally, but like in
Yeah.
business, like, I know I need to grow as a leader if I want my business to grow and I need to
Hmm.
step into that identity. And it's funny too, like, whether it's fitness or business, you totally can get imposter syndrome or feel like the comparison trap is real, especially
Yeah.
when we can see everyone else whether they're truly thriving or not, but like, oh gosh, I could never be like that. I'm like, no, I need to take that next step. I need to step into that identity, improve as a leader, things like that, if I want to see growth for myself too.
Yeah. Yeah. It all, there's a lot of comparison between the business and the health space and how it all comes together. Yeah, this is great. I do want to ask you about some of the, I guess some of the, I know you work with both men and women but primarily women is
Yeah.
really, what are some of the, I guess some of the nuances that, when people are starting, and you might see some distinction here between how you know, a man when they start their journey versus how a woman starts their journey. But I know, like, when you first get started, you make that decision that I'm ready to make a change here. I'm ready to transform myself, my body, and really become that person that we aspire to become. When somebody first gets started, what if you can kind of give them like a peek around the corner as to like what to expect maybe in that first 30 days and some of the challenges that you're going to face and like what to expect, what would be those things that they should be looking out for?
Yeah. Well, one of the first things I do is so I have a couple coaches who work with me. And so like they might be coaching clients on their roster, but I'm very hands-on and my clients, all of our clients have access to me. And we do like for instance, like a 4 to 6 week metabolic assessment with me where
Hmm.
we get on a Zoom and we, talk through how it's going so far, kind of project based off of their start point how much longer the phases will take, things like that. And one thing that I always say is, I just want to forewarn you. I just want to be the genie in the bottle so that when this happens, you're going, okay, Megan told me this would happen.
Mm-hmm.
Is I want to tell you that the shiny object syndrome is going to wear off. So this is all new and shiny. Everyone, when they get started, is excited because it's a new program or it's a new thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, around week 6, you're gonna go like, oh shoot, this is just real life now, and I just got to do the work.
Yeah.
And it's like that's where people are tempted to jump to the next thing that it's the endorphin hit of, oh, I just signed up for a new program. Like we all
Yeah.
get that dopamine hit.
Yeah.
It's like we want that and we crave that. So then when that wears off, we're on to the next thing. But that is what has kept you stuck, is you're always looking for the new dopamine hit.
Right.
And so I always tell them that. And then when it happens, because sure enough, life happens, ish hits the fan, right? We all have things go on. Like I shared with you, prior to starting recording, I've recently had a miscarriage. And
Mm-hmm.
with my business and things like that, I couldn't go full throttle. I had to take a step back in that season of life. So that's something
Yeah.
I always tell clients is your fitness journey, whether it's business, fitness, anything in your life, sometimes you can't give 100%, but it's like a light dimmer switch where sometimes you
Mm-hmm.
can only give 60%. And
Mm.
that 60% for you that day is 100%. And that's
Yeah.
okay. Just don't throw in the towel. People go, if I can't be 100, I'm going to be 0, like
Mm.
whatever, all or nothing. And so, depending on the season of life you're in, we might have to turn that up or turn it down. And that is perfectly okay. So, that's some
Yeah.
advice I'd give
That's
like all
great.
clients starting out.
I love how you're not in that kind of like all or nothing, 100%, 0%. You know, sometimes we have to be at 60, sometimes we have
Yeah.
to die because it does. Life has a way of shaking you up sometimes.
Yeah.
and you need to, recapture, reallocate your energy and where it needs to go depending on what's happening in your life. Let's
Yes.
talk about, we're kind of getting near the end here, and I want to give you the opportunity to speak more about your coaching program, what that entails, what just like, let's just hear everything. Like, somebody wants to work with you in your coaching, what can they expect as a client? Tell me about the process and what you take people through their fitness journey.
Yeah. So first of all, it's like one-on-one fitness and nutrition coaching, body transformation. We do work with men, but mostly women. That's who I'm always talking to on social media. Because like they say, if you're talking to everyone, you're talking to no one,
That's
right?
right. Yep.
So,
Yep.
but we work with primarily women, but people who want to see body recomposition, not just weight loss.
Mhm.
And they want to do it a healthy and sustainable way. I always start with a free strategy call with people because I'm like, I want to know that you're not here for a quick fix. Like, if that's the case, I'll refer you out, or that just to make sure you're a fit for the program, like, and that we're a fit for you. Because I think that's really important to first start there. Because I'm like, I genuinely want to work with the right people so that it's mutually beneficial. And then if they're a good fit, then we take them through 3 phases in the program. So we have our boost phase. That's our metabolic priming phase. That's where we are undoing all the damage from past dieting and restriction and binging, restricting all of those kind of things, and getting their metabolism back to a healthy place. Because what that's going to do is they're going to feel better. They're going to have better gut health, better metabolism, hormone health. If they have thyroid issues, things like that, we have to get that into a better place for them to have sustainable results. Then phase two, that's our burn phase. So that's where you're going to see more body recomposition.
Mm.
You're going to be seeing more fat loss, and you're revealing that beautiful hard earned muscle underneath. And then phase three, that's our balance phase. So that's where it's that lifestyle integration of, hey, you got the results. Yay, let's all celebrate. But then let's make sure you can do this on your own after the
Mm.
program and sustain the results for life. And let's make sure you found that balance, the wine nights or the Friday date nights and all the things. And you don't feel like you have to track your food every day the rest of your life to maintain the
Yeah.
results. Because personally, I'm like, I'm not going to track macros every day the rest of my life. So I want
Yeah.
that for my clients too. So that's kind of the process that we take them on.
Are each of these phases, is the timing kind of dependent on the person? Like, phase one for somebody might be a month, where phase one for somebody else might be 2 months, or is it more on a rigid timeline?
Totally dependent on the person. I wish I had a more concrete answer than that, but
Yeah.
it's the truth. So,
Yeah.
because you can kind of think, especially for that first phase, if someone has been chronically dieting the last 10 years, that first phase to get their metabolism back to a healthy place is going to take longer than the person who's never done a diet
Mm.
before. They're actually set up better because their metabolism is probably in a better spot. But yeah, so very, very dependent on the person.
Gotcha. Yeah, it would make sense. I mean, we're
Yeah,
we're all different and kind of where we're at with
totally.
our health. So,
Yeah. Yep.
cool. And you've got a podcast as well. So, the Muscle Makeover podcast.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about that. Where can people find you online for hearing your content, and what can they expect there?
Yeah, yeah. So it's really all like health fitness related topics. I do throw in like, because the Fitness Uncharted, my company, Fit You for short, not FU, just FYI. Fit You. But is all about like not only the physical fitness, but the mental, emotional, spiritual fitness too. So I do throw in some, like, I've had some mental health counselors, things like that, because I think that side of things is so important. But it'll either be monologues with myself or interviews with different health professionals and experts. And then you can expect an episode every week on Wednesday at 6 a.m. Eastern to be released. And then you can find the Muscle Makeover on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you like to listen.
Perfect. Well, I will make sure links to the podcast. Is there a link for, like, if somebody wants to connect with you and work with you as a coach, like, where would they go to do that?
Yep, you can go to the show notes on the podcast episode. All of the links and things you might need are there. You can also find me on Facebook as Megan Hardy, or
Okay.
Instagram or TikTok, any of those places at Fitness Uncharted.
Okay.
And then just DM me and we can start a conversation.
Cool. Sounds good. Well, I will make sure to link that up in the show notes so everybody knows how to connect with you. Megan, this is awesome. I really appreciate the time that you brought forth to the podcast, having a conversation.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed your perspective on health, and I respect it so much. I mean, as far as how you think about working with people, just the individualism that you put into the person and really building something that's sustainable for them and is really designed truly for that individual for getting to their goals. So thank you for bringing that to the show and sharing your message.
Yeah, absolutely. So glad to get to come and be on the show. And thank you for having me. And can't wait to hear all of the Thrive Local podcast.
Yeah, awesome. All right. Well, on that note, we will go ahead and sign off. And thank you, everybody, for listening. And we'll see you on the next episode.